Thank you, David. So it's 2004, and I'm standing on the doorstep of a beautiful, cute, maybe more is a better word, one-story home in northeastern Iowa, Hancock County to be specific. Totally picturesque. And it smells like shit. I said shit, not shift. I didn't mean to say that, even though my mother literally an hour ago begged me not to say that here. I say it for reasons you will come to understand. This is the home of Gloria Gall. And Gloria is the older, retired friend of my road trip companion. And on her doorstep, we can see to the left the road we've come on. And it's the longest, straightest road I've ever seen. And behind us is a sea of green corn that stretches to the horizon. And then to my right, about several hundred yards, there are two long metallic buildings. And Gloria welcomes us into her home, and she brings us to her dining room table, and she serves us Nilla wafers. Remember? Nilla wafers. And she explains, she pauses for the smell. She says, "I'm sorry, but that's coming from those buildings. And specifically, it's coming from the pigs that are in the buildings. 17,000 hogs crammed together in small cages." And she said that the floor the buildings are on have slats so that when the pigs poop, their manure collects down below in a large pit called a lagoon. She says, "Well, you know how you have smoked meat, right? Well, those pigs are being smoked over their own feces." And this is pretty disgusting, and I apologize for that, in the midst of a lovely dinner. And maybe the only good news is that perhaps this audience, I risk turning fewer of you off from pork. But maybe the bad news is that almost all the meat that we Americans consume in this country, whether it's chicken fingers or filet mignon, is produced in this industrial style. And she tells us that that when she learned about this the very first time, well, actually, let me say that the industrial style, the problem with it is not just the smell, right? It's not just the mistreatment of the animals. It's also the cumulative effect on the community. And she points to a paper that's on her table that same day, documenting an incident just a week ago in the same county where a similar lagoon spilled over into a stream. And she said that the first time that she learned about this was just by happenstance at church on Mother's Day 10 years prior, and that she began calling around. Several dozen people showed up to a meeting. A week later, 200 of her neighbors showed up. And what they learned was, Gloria and her neighbors, was that the laws, the environmental regulation and the laws of zoning laws that might have protected them were so weak and had been deliberately weakened that they couldn't do anything about it. They were unable to stop those two buildings from being built. And they were still fighting. In fact, at that moment, they were fighting to prevent 10 more from being sited right next to her property. So we're sitting at her table, and she turns to me and she says, "Well, the owner of these buildings isn't from here. He's actually from your neck of the woods." And I gulped, and she didn't say it in an accusing way, but I still felt a level of, I felt awful that someone from my community, and by that she meant New England, was hurting her community. And maybe it was that, or the next moment I caught up on the wall, I saw a clock. And this caught my eye because it was a clock with birds around each of the, associated with the numbers. It's the same clock that my grandmother had and still has to this day. And somehow that little piece of familiarity and the observation that she made burned a question in my mind and in my heart. Just what can I do? What can I do to help? That question weighed on me even after I returned to Boston. And I did maybe what would seem predictable. I gave up eating pork. I read lots of books about agriculture. I talked to my family and friends about what I had learned, what I was learning. Probably was somewhat annoying to them. But none of that got rid of the feeling that I wanted to do something more, and none of that got rid of the shame that was beginning to develop that I was unable to do anything. And so that feeling lasted for a long time, lasted for several years until one moment, and began to change at this moment when I teamed up with 3 college students, including David Schwartz. He had the mohawk then, I think. And we were huddled this one night, very late, at a conference, in an empty conference room. Everyone else had gone to bed. We were up because we were intent on what we were dreaming up. What we were envisioning was leveraging the influence of college cafeterias in the same way that the anti-apartheid movement had leveraged the university endowments. And in fact, we were trying to divest those billions of dollars that colleges spent on food from industrial agriculture and invest them in family farms and local and sustainable agriculture. That was our vision. And a lot has changed since then. We have gone on to become a national campaign. We are now influencing or involved with over 100,000 students on 300 campuses nationwide. And I have to say, thank you. Yes, it's really exciting. I can't believe it's gotten that far. That would not have happened without Join. I have to tell you that every year that we've been in operation, we have had either a Join Fellow or a Join alumni on staff. And our curriculum, or sometimes both, and our curriculum, the way in which we train our student organizers and student leaders is really built up from the Join experience. So we wouldn't be who we are without Join, and we wouldn't do what we do without that background. And in terms of what we do, I'm really happy to say that as of 2 weeks ago, from a campaign victory we had in California, our student organizers from the Real Food Challenge, have now committed $75 million of their university food to real food in total. And so I'm really happy with where that's going. Thank you. And you know, when I now think, and I just want to say, every one of those dollars is a dollar that we are taking away from the factory farms like the one next to Gloria Gall, and investing it in the kind of food economy that will nourish our bodies, our farmers, and our whole communities. And now when I think about Gloria Gall, I don't have that feeling of shame that I had before. I have a feeling of collective power. And I realized that when I left Gloria Gall's house for that first time, and I left Iowa, I had the right impulse, but I had the wrong question. I learned that the better question isn't what can I do, it's what can we do. Right? That whether you are a traveler who wanders unexpectedly and witnesses injustice, or you are a college grad looking to make a difference in the world, or whether you're a grandmother who's been forced to become an activist, it's when we break that illusion of isolation that we can activate the potential for positive action and for justice. And so I would just leave you with this question. What can we do together? Thank you.
Thank you, Anim. Thank you very much. Let's give him another hand.